My name is Jihad Abdulmumit. I'm formerly a member of the Black Panther Party and the Black Liberation Army. I served over almost a quarter of a century in prison for my actions involved in the Black liberation struggle. And at that time, it was, to, I guess, funnel and feed money into the building of the 5 states down south. That would be South Carolina, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Georgia. And I'm going to get back to that when I'm 8 minutes in, right, to show how important that type of strategy is. All right. But yes, I really like to also give thanks to Brother Spirit Child for sharing that video, because in it made a point that really resonated when when the guy from the NAACP was talking, and the young brother got up. He said, I see all religious groups in here, the Christians, the Jews, and the Muslims, and all these old elders, gray, you see that? So he said, we're the Crips and the Bloods. You know, we're the street formations. And so I'm going to kind of look to that. Today, if you did not know, is October the 10th. October 10th, 1800 was this is the anniversary of the attempted insurrection of Gabriel Prosser. I'm in Richmond, Virginia, by the way, and that's where he was hung on this day 220 years ago, for his efforts to liberate us all on the issues that we're talking about right now, stemming from the slave plantation. We see the manifestations of that. And our youth has always played a role. Gabriel Prosser was 24 years old. A lot of sisters was talking about Chicago, Mark Clark was 22, Fred Hampton was 21. All of us, the Panthers, all of us was in our 20s. Matter of fact, there's only a few leaders that really rise to the top when we talk about true struggle and during the civil rights movement and the national liberation struggle movements. That was the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Al-Haj Malik al-Shabazz, both assassinated when they were 39. All the rest of us were young. The Huey Newtons and the Bobby Seals and all our street formations, all of that, all of us were young. The Larry Hoovers and the Jeff Forts, the Imam Maliks, they were young. And so I'm going to talk about why the support of political prisoners is important, and how the assassination of the Black Panther Party and those freedom fighters throughout our history means so much for us today. You know, one of the first members of the Black Panther Party to be assassinated by the police was Bobby Hutton. And that was 2 days after the killing of assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. And Bobby was only 18 years old. And so these freedom, what is the connection? What is the importance of this? Because the whole idea is, obviously, when we talk about freedom of political prisoners, many of which now, if you just do the math, you know, from the 60s and the 70s, these comrades, these sisters and brothers have been in jail for going on 50 years. Jalil Muttaqin, who was one of the co-founders of the Jericho movement, which I am the chairperson now, was just released last week. And after 5 decades of arduous struggles. So I just want to talk about some connections now. So I want you to really focus on what I'm saying. All right, so take it what it's worth. And so the information is here for us. The more things change, the more they remain the same. You know, there's a veneer of progress that happens. So our movement, the movement for freedom, for human rights, for our food, clothing, and shelter to improve the condition of our lives, you know, has been taking some distinct ups and downs. There's times when it's really strong and powerful, and then there's times when it's flat and infested with drug infusions in our communities and sellouts and buyouts and all of that. The history of oppression has been consistent. Our movements has been sporadic, up and down. The history of oppression is the institution of oppression. It is the institution of exploitation. It is the institution of social degradation. It is the institution of colonialism. It is the institution of imperialism that's been intoned in the very fabric of our very own lives today. I applaud all of the efforts of our sisters and brothers on the street, the youth that's listening to this. All power to you. May Allah bless us with success in our endeavors and our actions. But you know what's really remiss? What's really remiss is the undertone of what we're talking about today. You see, there has to be, and read me correctly here, there has to always be that protest against police and racial violence against our people. There always has to be that. There always has to be the struggle to change those policies, to enforce laws that's going to protect our rights and to seek justice for them. But what's remiss, sisters and brothers, what's remiss is the development and the establishment of an attitude of self-determination in our community. Because other than that, as important as it is, because we all live in a place called the United States of America, what we're really doing is we're asking the slave master to put in check that overseer that's riding on that horseback, governing this slave plantation, not to whip us, not to castrate us, not to hang us, not to throw us in the bottom of the lake. While at the same time, we're not investing what is needed to develop a sense of self-determination in our own community. So even though we have to protest and legislate with these Uncle Tom leaders and these sellouts in the Democrat and Republican Party that shows no real representation of us, we have to do that because we're on this playing field. But what we have to begin to do is develop some sense of self-determination to govern ourselves. How are we going to protect ourselves? Damn the police, how are we going to protect ourselves? What's going to initiate our development where we can begin to feed and clothe and shelter ourselves, where we can have some self-development, some spiritual development where we're not so decadent in our own behaviors? And I know we're not here to talk about that, but you can't talk about the goose and don't talk about the gander. You can't talk about what the pigs are doing and don't talk about what we're not doing. And they constantly beg the government, the Trump administration. You know what? Some of us said we shouldn't even vote and all this stuff. And yet still we got Jericho has to repeatedly foster campaigns to governors to free our political prisoners. And you may not have anything to do with voting that joker in. And now here we are writing letters to show how good our warriors are, that they didn't get an incident report in prison, all that. I want to wrap up with this here. Supporting our political prisoners speaks for itself. Just go to the Jericho website, you can see who they are. The Rochelle McGee's, they've been in prison almost 60 years. And the freedom fighters that's on the street now, if that's the message we're sending, the one who gets the sister or the brother that gets arrested today, the government knows that given our track record of not supporting each other, they'll be there come 2060. They'll be there in 2060. And we will have forgotten all about them. Like we've forgotten the Sunyata Acolis and the Matulu Shakors, we've forgotten them. There is no legitimate struggle without that raising high the banner of freedom fighters that came before you. How superficial was that? And you expect some change? Your enemy knows better than that. No soldier left behind. We're leaving everybody behind. It's not a day-to-day struggle that just started last week, sisters and brothers. We have to do for ourselves. So that's why I'm preaching on the rant right now. You can go to the website, Jericho Movement, and see who these prisoners are. You can render support by giving a direct connection to our freedom fighters from the past to now so we can learn those lessons. They won't let Larry Hoover out because he was a gangbanger. They won't let Jeff Ford out because he was a gangbanger. We can say, oh, we don't want to let them out. But they have revolutionized themselves in prison just like George Jackson. And when we talk about the youth, we have to talk about lifting up our street warriors. That's what we have to do. In the meantime, those of us that have it, and your Black leaders are not going to tell you this, I'm going to tell you this right now. Those that are able, eligible, and qualified to do so, make sure you exercising your Second Amendment right. Make sure you are exercising that Second Amendment, because we've been terrorized so much by our own violence, we're scared to even defend ourselves. We don't even know what to do, except be slaughtered one after another. Wait till tomorrow and see the headlines. Who else got killed? Who else got killed? So with that, I conclude. I pray Allah bless our guidance, purify our hearts, and give us the knowledge that benefits us. If I said anything that offends anybody on this call, I seek refuge and apologies to Allah and to you, and I pray for our guidance. Assalamu alaikum.